welcome to Get Your Bell Rung Professional Wrestling Podcast. Guys, I have a treat for all of you. I have a gentleman on who is an actor. He's modeled. He's done voiceovers, multiple podcasts. He works for Sportskeeda, professional wrestler. I mean, this man does it all. Mac Davis, how are you?
Man, I'm doing great. The only thing you left out was husband and grandfather, father and grandfather. Yeah, man.
Yeah, I love. Yeah, and we were talking before we went on live, man. I don't know how you do all of that. You have to be Superman, because I'm a husband with a couple of kids who are grown now. This podcast eats up so much of my time. I don't know how you do 3 or 4 podcasts like you do.
Before I even got into the podcasting side, I first tested the waters of doing some interviews, and David LaGreca with Busted Open was one of them. And so I went to New York, and he told me then, he knew, he's like, Mac, I feel for you. This is all consuming. Wrestling is all consuming. And it is, because it's not just the podcast that you have to make time for. You got to make time to watch the shows. You got to keep up with all the action from a lot of other shows that maybe you don't really want to watch, but you have to if you want to stay up to date with what's happening. So there was a lot involved in these podcasts. And yeah, when Greco told me that, I felt much better. I knew, okay, even he feels that kind of pressure. You know, it's just always on, always.
It is, especially, I try to, do at least cover 1 or 2 newsworthy items on my social media pages. And I mean, that gets exhausting too, trying to keep up with that, because there's always so much. I mean, there's just no way I can get it covered. And especially when you have a huge event, like unfortunately the passing of Hulk Hogan. I mean, there's just so much going on out there. And speaking, and I want to start there just for a moment. I normally start, with your background and things like that, but that's been such a huge thing. Someone like Hulk Hogan passing, a man who, frankly, everybody from podcasters to professional wrestlers to referees, I mean, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing, a lot of us, if it wasn't for Hulk Hogan. How did you find out about the passing of Hulk Hogan?
Nobody's asked me that, and I haven't really thought about it, because I'm usually like you mentioned, I'm usually the one asking questions. Right. But I first heard about it, I want to say it was either Friday night, maybe. When did the news break? Do you remember?
Thursday.
It was on Thursday.
Yeah.
I'm not sure then. I just remember seeing the news, and I immediately sent the information to Teddy Long and Bill Apter, just to get confirmation, see if they had heard anything. And before I even heard back from either one of them, someone else that I knew would know confirmed. And it was shocking, because, I know Hulk was a little bit older. He was 71 years of age, but he was still in great health, basically. And every time you saw him, he looked like he was in shape. Now, he was a little bit older, of course, and a little bit smaller than he used to be, but that's what happens as you get older. But I didn't expect to see him go anywhere. And then there was all the hoopla. And, just recently I did a show with Vince Russo. That's Brodown, which we do on Sportskeeda on Friday nights after SmackDown, except for this week. And I'll tell you about that in a minute. But I forget what I was saying.
Yeah, no, you're talking about all the hoopla going on when we, with the death of Hogan.
Yeah, I just I think that a lot of people were surprised when Bubba the Love Sponge came out and started talking about his health. And it was, Hogan's not doing good. And then you hear from people like Jimmy Hart and some of the other people close to him saying, no, he's doing great, brother. No problem. No big deal at all, man. He's sitting up. He's enjoying, dinner, all this kind of stuff. And then you find out that maybe that wasn't true, that maybe he was in dire straits for a period of time, and everybody kept beating down on Bubba the Love Sponge. And then people started saying, well, are you supporting Bubba the Love Sponge for what he did? No, not at all. In fact, that's where I think the problem began. I don't think it was his place of anyone to say that he was in dire straits. It was left up to the family. And if the family, as they were hiding this information for a reason, that was a family decision. And that's something I don't care. If somebody let out my information from my family before I announced it, I would be pissed. And I'm sorry, but I don't think Bubba the Love Sponge, his actions, no matter what, and Vince Russo and I would butt heads on this, is that I don't think he was the one that should have made the comments that he was in bad health. It needed to be the family. Anything else for Bubba the Love Sponge at this point, to me, it was a ploy for something, making money, getting ratings, getting clicks. I don't care what it is. What was the purpose of releasing the information in the first place? What benefits from that? The family's not benefiting because they're trying to keep that quiet. Imagine that you're one of his kids and you hear Bubba the Love Sponge saying your dad died and you don't know. That's the kind of crap that I think comes from stuff like that, and it needs to be careful. There's a lot of situations where I've known news, but I haven't said anything publicly because I don't think it's my place to do so. And I think as a good reporter and a good podcaster, you should always keep that in mind. It's not about the clicks all the time. It's not about the ratings. It's about being a human and decent and not releasing information that should have been kept private.
Right. I agree. Matter of fact, today, Mac, I kind of got a little short with a few of the fans because, they were talking about this, how can the family lie about blah, blah, blah. And I went, look, why don't you release all of your information, your health issues, everything to the public and see how, you would feel. It's ridiculous that people believe that because someone is in a spotlight, professional wrestler, celebrity, whoever they may be, that they owe us, that much that, here's my health stuff. It's absolutely ridiculous.
To your point, the hospital couldn't release that information.
Right.
They would get sued. But somehow we can get secondhand information that's not confirmed. And even if it was confirmed, is not your place in a personal, matter like that to, put out there. It's just ridiculous. It's bad use of airtime. He's an old radio guy. So am I. I understand the type of radio that he's doing. And he can say there's no benefit to him by releasing that information, but there is. Absolutely. There are people talking about him and he's getting clicks and ratings. And the best thing we can do when people do that is totally ignore them and go somewhere else so that they don't stick around.
Right.
And I'm not, it's not a personal attack on Bubba the Love Sponge. I found it kind of callous that you would do something like that without, the family's approval.
Right. Right. It is irresponsible journalism is what it is. Very irresponsible.
Hey man, let's face the fact. In today's world now, we have news and fake news. We've over the years we found out how much fake news is out there. Yeah. Man, if you think that just is in the ABC, NBC, CBS kind of realm, no, it's even in wrestling. These wrestling pages and sites that report news, most times are not correct. They're just getting secondhand information, but they're calling themselves reporters and real websites delivering real news. Bubba the Love Sponge is one of those cases where I feel like, his information may have been right, but the decision to use it was unprofessional.
Right. No, I completely 100% agree with you. Let's get into you, Mac. Where were you born and raised at?
Savannah, Georgia. I was born in Savannah. My father was a newspaper editor. He was the executive editor of the Savannah Morning News and Evening Press. And he got it when I was raised up. My dad, keep in mind now, I'm 62. My father at that time, he's a Marine. He's not an active Marine, but he's a Marine.
Right.
And so I was raised by a Marine who was very boot campish kind of raised, and not a whole lot of love and stuff like that. And he always, I think, wanted me to get into the newspaper. I disappointed him because I went the route of radio. I loved radio, and mainly because I wanted to entertain. And I knew radio was a place I could get a show and maybe entertain among, the other things that you have to do. And that's really where I started when it came to, my growth. But yeah, I grew up in Savannah. My dad was, like I said, the newspaper editor, and my mom was just an old Southern belle. I could tell you there were times when my mom, when she would get mad, and back then we had the rotary phones on the walls and stuff. Yep. And she would be going, rah, 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 she would just be barking at me about something. That phone rings, she'd pick it up. Hello, just the sweetest Southern belle accent, and you would never know that she was just ticked off a second before. But good Southern parents, just kind of a rough household when it came to being raised by dad, because you were looking for a pat on the back, and you didn't get many of those.
Right, so. Right. Yeah, I'm from Louisiana originally, man. I get it. My dad was a military man himself, and if I was able to sleep until 7:00 in the morning on Saturdays, that was me being able to sleep in. It was getting up, getting the chores and stuff like that. Were you very athletic whenever you were younger?
I really wasn't. I played rec ball, baseball, football, that kind of stuff. But it ended there. I didn't get into high school and play any kind of sports or anything. I did get into the gym right around the end of high school. I started kind of falling in love with kind of toying around in the gym because my dad was a gym rat. And then when I went to college, I took some gym classes there to kind of learn a little bit more about what I was doing. But outside of that, really not that athletic, I wouldn't say. I was more of a daredevil. That would be, I would do some stupid stuff that would probably kill a lot of other people, but for me, it just kind of came natural, and I enjoyed doing it. And I enjoyed acting. I liked entertaining people. Even as a kid, I loved to entertain people. It was just something, if I could fake fight and make people think I really got hit or something, or, that was just great to me. And in radio, when I got into radio, it blended very well because I could still act and still pretend to be something, which later on helped me when it came to wrestling.
Right. Mr. Herb Simmons, man,
love him.
It's always an honor when I know Mr. Herb is watching the podcast. He is such a legend, such a great man. He says that Mr. Davis, I think he meant to say the greatest of all, the guest of all guests is what he said.
Man, Herb, I appreciate it. Herb has been on the show many times with Teddy and I, and Herb is, and I've said this, and I'll say this anywhere I go, when it comes to wrestling promoters, he is one of the very, very few who will deliver what he promises. There's a lot of guys out there who don't always say what they, what they're really going to be doing, and then you get kind of stuck. And he has never been that way. He's always been straight. And I know for a fact that he's very fair with the boys when it comes to payments and doing things. And he makes sure that everybody's winning as best as he can. And that's what I really admire about Herb. Herb, by the way, going into the Hall of Fame next year. Man, I can't wait. St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame, Herb Simmons going in. I don't think he's going in easily. I think his wife is helping boot him back into that Hall of Fame and get up on the wall with everybody else. And I'll say this too, Herb, if you're watching right now, the last time we talked, we were laughing about that. But the fact of the matter is, you said, I don't feel like, we should start putting promoters into the Wrestling Hall of Fame. Here's my argument to that. It is that if someone else as a promoter can promote over 50 years like you have, they deserve to go into the Hall of Fame as well. The work you've done in St. Louis has been exceptional. It's been historic. I can't imagine how many promoters have promoted as long as you have. You deserve to be in the St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame. Don't turn it down. Say thank you.
No, I completely agree, man. Mr. Herb, I mean, one of the best things that's happened to me since I've started doing this podcast was meeting Mr. Herb Simmons. Getting involved with SICW. I have on some of his guys. Herb has been on my show more than anyone else. Yeah, I absolutely love the guy. He is such a great guy and a great gentleman. Bob Cook says, hello, Mac.
Hey, Bob's good to see you. I was wondering who Knievel's Corner was. I wasn't sure. I had a couple people in mind. Bob was one, and then Ray Lloyd, I thought may have been the other one because he's a big Knievel fan too. But Bob, it's always good to see you or hear from you, my friend.
Yeah, Bob's great. And you talk about the Hall of Fame. Do you agree that not just promoters, but referees should go into the Hall of Fame as well? Because look, these guys, they're doing so much more than just counting, your shoulders down on the mat 3 times. I mean, they're doing so much more. So yeah, I agree with that.
I think that there is a place for referees into the Hall of Fame, special hall, just like we have a special hall for celebrities. I think there should be another special hall also for some of the, some more of the announcers from the past, as well as people like Bill Apter.
Yep.
If I'm being really honest, when I grew up, and I'm not sure how old you are, so
52. Soon
okay.
to be 53.
Well, I grew up with the wrestling magazines, and
Mhm.
if you didn't, back then we didn't have internet. We didn't know what was happening,
Right.
so it was extremely important to have those magazines. And Bill Apter was the face of those magazines for years and years. And I think that he is one of those special people who believe that belongs into the Hall of Fame, the WWE. I think that is a legitimate
Yep.
area where we need to focus, as well as the referees.
I agree. At what age did you become a professional wrestling fan?
You're not going to believe this, but I was 38.
Wow.
I will kind of give you a backtrack here.
Sure.
When I was working in radio and my first radio job in Savannah, I started getting backstage or getting tickets to the shows. And I got to know the promoter over time. His name was Chip Burnham. And Chip, actually, I think it was somebody just before Chip. But anyhow, I would get tickets and I'd go backstage occasionally and I'd meet some of these guys and I got to know them. And after a while, I kind of found myself just kind of blending in with everybody. Nobody ever made me leave. And I got to see and meet some fantastic people over the years. And I had always toyed with wanting to be a wrestler. That was something that I truly did, consider, because I wanted to be a stunt man or a wrestler. People are going to think, oh, that's just stupid. Back then, stunt men, that was a big thing when I grew up, being a stunt man. So I wanted to be a stunt man or Evel Knievel, because he was a daredevil.
Yep.
So those are the kind of things that drew me in. But, oh, God. I think that it allows me, I forget where I am now, so I'm sitting here rambling on.
We're talking about you becoming a wrestling fan at 38 years old.
I became a wrestling fan, but during the time I did want to become one. But at one point in my radio career, what happened was we had a fundraiser that was being held in a football stadium. They're going to have a football game, police department versus sheriff's department. And they wanted to have a halftime show, which they decided was going to be professional wrestling. Well, the professional wrestling was just this pitiful looking. We had rope tied around, use like 4 poles or something like that. It was very, very redneck put together. And we get in there and we do our match at halftime. But there was a promoter in the stands at the time that saw me, and he came over and he says, "Hey, have you ever considered actually wrestling?" And I just kind of laughed and said, "Yeah, I have." And he said, "Well, come on down. We'll just test, do a couple bumps, find out what you think." And at that point, I felt like, okay, well, maybe I can do this on an independent level. And I got in there and I took a couple of bumps and they felt fine. And that kind of inspired everything thereafter. That was how I got into wrestling, and that was 38 years of age. Yeah,
Wow.
that's rather old. I hate to say that word. That's not as young as you want to be when you start wrestling, especially because of the injuries that you can get. And I've gotten many. In fact, I just had a surgery done recently from some of the damage that was done over the years. But it's something I love. I can't imagine never doing this, or being a part of it in some way. And that's how podcasting came along, really. It came along because I couldn't perform in the ring anymore, but I still wanted to be attached.
Right. Now, who trained you?
Nobody. That would be the easy answer, really. I trained over time in the ring. I got pushed into the wrestling ring, and I mean a matter of weeks after they saw, mainly because they saw something I didn't. My first night into the ring, the place went ape. I don't know why. The story, my look, I don't know what it was, but for whatever reason, they attached themselves to me. So the promoters started jamming me up the card, as we went through show after show. And a lot of guys were getting pissed off, and rightfully so, because I'm passing them by, and I don't even know that I'm pissing anybody off because I'm not in that. I don't know, that this is wrong. I'm just doing what I'm told when I come in, to do my spot. And so I got pushed to the main event really quick, and it just caught on. I think people saw me as a newbie, even though I was a little bit older and I was chasing a dream. And I think they felt that story, so they stuck with me, and they wanted to see me, make it. And that's what we did.
Yeah. And as we were talking about before we went on live, man, a lot of your matches were very, very physical. I mean, all professional wrestlers are physical, right? But
Yeah.
a lot of your matches was kind of on the hardcore level. Matter of fact, whenever you were a younger guy, you became very friends with someone who became one of your biggest foes. We talk about Preston Paradise.
Yeah, man. Preston Paradise, that was in that run I was just talking about in the first year where they pushed me up the card. In my first year, at the end of that first year, we had a 2-day event with wrestling card, and it was huge. A lot of people there, sold out. And we get in the ring. Now, the story before we have this main event match is that Preston Paradise, as you mentioned, was a friend of mine. And we started doing trying something that hadn't been done in wrestling in this area, not to anybody's recollection ever before. And that was that while I was wrestling, he would come out and make his way up in the stands near my wife and start messing with her during my matches. Now, back then, again, we didn't have internet. So all you had were these people in the smaller towns, and they see and they know that's my wife up there, and he's messing with them. Guys saying, hey, man, I saw him come up during your match, man. He was talking stuff, and people were buying everything we were selling, right, to the point that even the guys in the back, we told very few of them what was happening, to the point where they thought we really did not like each other and that we would fight in the back in a drop of a hat. And those were great times because we would laugh going, oh man, these guys still think that we hate each other and we're having a blast, Now
that's interruption. I apologize, but I want to go back to, were you really married at the time? And
yes,
was this woman really your wife that they were using?
Yeah, she would never do that now. At that time, we had just gotten married maybe a year or so. And she reluctantly agreed to let him come up there. I think the last time he went up there with a rose. And that's when I stopped the match. Mid-match, I stopped and I grabbed the mic and said, hey. And I started mouthing off at him. And that's when people were like, holy crap, what's going on? But after that, it was, again, I'm saying the times were different. That match in particular, I remember a guy that's there, and Preston may be watching this and probably will watch this at some point, but there was a guy at the match, Big Jim, that was his name. Big Jim was there, and he came over and he goes, hey, look, and he held out a pocket knife. He said, I got a knife. I'm going to get him. I'm going to get him. That's how much people were buying our story. That's how hot they were, that they wanted to see me beat his ass because he was an asshole. I'm sorry. Can we cuss on here?
Absolutely.
Okay. They wanted to let him know he was an asshole, and they wanted to cheer me on. And man, they bought it hook, line, and sinker. I had people in town who actually asked me, man, you and this guy mess with your wife? What's going on, man? They would actually ask that question. It's like, hey, that's great. In fact, to the point, here's another thing that happened. While we were having that feud, after one of our matches, I ended up going to a huddle house, and it's like a Waffle House. If you have never, and so I'm in there after the show, and I'm eating, and I'm almost finished, but I see Preston pulling into the parking lot. Now, inside the restaurant, it's not just me. There's a lot of wrestling fans there because that's where everybody, wanted to go after the show. Go out and find you a huddle house or a Waffle House and sit down and eat. And so I'm like, oh, man, how am I going to play this? He walks in, we start mouthing off right away in that restaurant, standing up at one another. The wait staff has no clue what is happening. They just know there's about to be a fight in here and something's got to happen. I went up there and slammed my money down, paid my bill, and walked out, told him I'd see him at the next show. And that's how much we committed to playing the character that we were playing, because we had to make it real. If it's not real, people don't care.
Right. Now, I know you guys had multiple matches. Do you remember how many matches during that feud exactly?
Preston and I probably have wrestled 50, 100 times, maybe something like that. When we built that feud, we were crossing each other here and there through tag team matches just to have us touch occasionally. It was a very long burn of a story, but that's why it worked so well, because fans, they kept coming to the shows. The shows were getting bigger and bigger until we, hit that main event, and we had to pay it off there. But Yeah, we wrestled a lot of times, even after that. It was still one of my opponents. Him and another guy, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, later, which was Mean Mike Stratus.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike Stratus was another one of those guys like Preston Paradise that when we touched in the ring, man, we had magic. We could read one another.
Right. So now I watched a few of the matches during that feud with you and Preston. My favorite match was the cage match, man. That was, I mean,
that was that first main event I was telling you about. That's it.
Yeah.
That match, when we were laying it out and what we wanted to do, and I was really green. I mean, if I don't even think I got the full match. I think that's the only clip I have of the match. But the match was, it was okay. I look at it now, just cringe a little bit if I saw it now. But the end of the match was something that we knew what we wanted to do. I ended up climbing over the top of the cage, where and this kind of cage match. Now, keep in mind, for those who are listening or watching, this cage match, you had to get out of the cage and get your feet on the floor. That's how it used to be in the old days. You had to get out of the cage. You had to go over the top or through the door and hit the floor with your 2 feet in order to win. So at the very end of the match, I'm going over the top. He's stopping me from going all the way over while his partner is unlocking the door so that he can walk out while I'm still stuck on top of the cage. But instead, right as he lets go of my leg from holding me at the top of the cage to walk out the door, I flip from the top of the cage and kick the door, which knocks him back in, and I fall to the ground. I chased that pop for that night, every single match thereafter. That was and I think if you saw it, you'll see the fans, they kind of come up on me after the match. I mean, they were so excited. They came out of the stands and I'm bleeding everywhere, and I got my partner, you'll see a big, tall, bald-headed guy there. I make no offense on bald heads. But at that time I still had a little bit of hair, but I was telling him, I said, man, back them off. I'm bleeding everywhere. I don't want to get these kids blood on them because I'm afraid their parents would get upset. And man, they were just anything. If I had something that was bloody, it was on the floor, it was gone. Somebody took it and they ran with it. It was gone. It was one of those moments that it was just a sweet spot. Everything about that leading up to that was perfect. And the ending was the best ending and chills I ever got from a wrestling match.
Yeah, and I watched that match actually right before we came on, and it seems like it was the moment where you kicked the door because part had opened in on him. Right as you were coming down is when I noticed the fans starting to really get close to you. Was Preston, was he your greatest rival during your career? You talked about Mike
Stratus. Yeah. I would say they're both really about the same level when it comes to my career, because they're only two names that I interacted with on a regular basis because of because we work so well together. And him and Mike Stratus is the guy that eventually put me out of wrestling. As you mentioned, I did a lot of matches that were pretty strenuous and hardcore in nature. Cage matches, dog collar matches, barbed wire, TLC matches. I've been through flaming tables. I've done all this crazy stuff. But Mike Stratus, eventually the work that he did on me over our time is why I had to leave. He came down and one of our last shows, which was in Milledgeville at the Milledgeville Coliseum, or what, I can't remember what that place was called, Centennial Center. And he came off the top rope with a leg drop right across my neck, and that was it. My career was done at that point. And I had to, it wasn't like they had to carry me out or anything. Right. I just had a lot of pain, didn't know what it was. And it wasn't just that leg drop. It was just a lot of abuse over time. And that leg drop just happened to be the one that irritated everything at the end. It was delivered perfectly fine. It just, it is what it is. You still, people think when you get in the ring that, it's like a trampoline or it's easy. It doesn't hurt. No, it hurts. It hurts. And even the whiplash too, you got to be careful about whiplash. Because your head's bouncing back and forth quite a bit, and a lot of times you're doing it yourself. Even when the punches, you're having to knock your head back and kind of quick, want a quick punch. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I've had the opportunity to put up a wrestling match, a wrestling ring before, and a lot of people think that bounce, and maybe it's the case of some of the rings. I know the ring I put together, the bounce, it wasn't like this trampoline. It's literally the boards moving is why there's a lot of that bounce there. You mentioned how much you bled in a lot of your matches. Do you prefer color in a match, or if
only if it's necessary? Okay. And that was the case even when I was doing. A lot of times you're going to see the videos and the pictures where I'm bleeding because that's what people wanted to see. Right. But the truth is, if you look at a lot of the matches I did, they had zero blood in them. But in the older days, I keep hating to use this, but again, back at a time, blood was kind of expected in certain matches. If you had a cage match, there was expected to be blood. If there was a dog collar match, you expected there to be blood. There were just, situations like that I think we've gotten away from. We're kind of scared of blood now, and rightfully so. There's a lot of concerns out there, but I do think there are times when it should be used if it's used with common sense. Don't use it like AEW. I love AEW at times. Some of what they do is wonderful, but some of the other stuff is not. And one of the things that I think is that they overuse blood. If you pull it back some and use the blood occasionally, it makes a bigger impact.
Right.
And if anybody ever asked me to bleed in certain matches, I always go, no, not unless it was something that I wanted to do that made sense in the match, but not just to bleed. If I'm getting beat down by 4 guys, I better be bleeding by the time they walk away, because in reality, that's what would be the case. You'd be a bloody mess.
Right. Absolutely. Now, talk to me about the dog collar match, because I know that's one of the matches you and Preston had was a dog collar match. And I've always wondered about those matches, because a dog collar match, how do you not hurt your neck in those matches?
You do. You do to a sense that the way that the dog collars that we had were made, they had like a little fur kind of lining in them, so you didn't rub your neck too terribly bad. But the problem was that the stuff that they used, the wool or whatever, it would irritate your neck and it makes you itch like crazy. But yeah, a dog collar match is very difficult to perform, because you've got to be careful. A lot of feet placement's important in wrestling. And sometimes that chain can get in the way of things that you want to do. Even, you got to be careful that it's not going to be something you're going to hit, unexpectedly in the ring if you come back and fall onto it. So it is a little bit of a thought process there. Putting the match together is fun, though, because you can use and utilize certain things you couldn't do somewhere else. That match, the dog collar match, I've got 3 matches that stand out to me in my career. It was the first one that we talked about a while ago, coming over the top of the cage for the first main event I ever had. And this one was the second one. This is the one. It wasn't a big show. I can't remember what show this was. It was just one of our smaller shows, but we just threw that on the card. And when I go back and watch it, I'm really happy. I wish the camera work had been a little bit better towards the end so you could see some of what was going on. But the execution of the match, I thought, was one of the better ones. It was just one of my favorite matches. And of course, my last one would be our last match in a cage that I did with Preston.
Oh, sorry. Talk to me about your matches with Mike, the gym that you mentioned. Is there a particular one that was your absolute favorite?
Wow. If I'm being honest, and Mike, don't hate me if you're watching, I can't think of many matches that I didn't enjoy that involved him. So it's hard for me to say which one I liked. It was just simply myself and my tag team partner, which was Firewalker, Chris, and Chris and I, man, we got along great. And Mike had a tag team partner as well. They were known as KI Elite. So for whatever reason, the 4 of us, man, we just cooked. When we got in the ring, we could tell stories and the fans liked it. And it got to the point, and this is one of the things that when a feud works, just like Preston Paradise or Mike Stratus, they could show up. And if we ended up in the same room at the same time and fans were around, even if it's intermission, people start watching and thinking something's about to happen because they know our history. And that's what, so it's really hard because I've done so many. I wish I could say, one particular favorite one. There were several that I can think of, but honestly, they were all fun matches. Winning the tag team belts with Firewalker that's one of them. I can tell you that, mainly because I enjoyed that was another pop at the end of the match. That was a natural pop by the fans that loved to see that finally, the two guys who were trying to win championship gold as a tag team finally, get it, and they do a double pin at the very end. So it was very maybe that's it. That may be the one.
Right. Talk to me about, you were inducted into the International Hall of Fame. Talk to me about
I was.
Yeah, that's what my research.
No. Don't let them tell you that. No, they're not putting me in there. But no, I was.
You can't trust the internet, man.
No.
Be researching you.
No, not even in Georgia, not even a Georgia Hall of Fame, which is where I live. And that kind of stuff doesn't matter to me anyhow. But I honestly. I'd be hard pressed to accept anything unless it came from Georgia, because that's the only place. Like I say, I knew that my career was not going to be in the WWE. I was 38 years of age when I started. There's not a chance in hell that anybody's going to hire me that age to be a wrestler. And I knew that. And I knew that the only place I could perform was going to be on the independents. And I was going to embrace that and do the best I could. And that's what I did.
I misunderstood it. It says that you're associated with the International Professional Wrestling.
Yeah, the International Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame. I have been with them since the very first year. I provide video, audio, things like that. And it's one of the places that I enjoy going to every year. It's in Albany, New York, and just a fantastic place to go. The people are really nice. The shows are really good. It's that one, the one in St. Louis and Jacksonville are three places I love to go every year because of how they are run.
Right. Talk to me about your acting career and your voice acting career.
My acting, at the most part, when you see things like that, is no movies, no TV, is is performing, whether it was in wrestling or anything else. That's pretty much the extent of the acting. I did do quite a bit of modeling, which a lot of guys will start laughing and giggling at probably. But after I got hurt in professional wrestling with the broken neck, I ended up getting into modeling. Somebody sent me a thing and said, "Hey, would you be interested in, being a model for an idea for a photograph I'm wanting to shoot?" My first response was, "Man, I'm not going to be a male model. What the hell?" And then they told me how much they were going to pay me if I, would shoot it. And I'm like, well, that makes sense. And you're going to fly me out to LA to do this? Yeah. Okay. We're talking business now, So I ended up started doing that. And there've been a lot of things. If you see, there's a lot of pictures, even in my Facebook page. Mm-hmm. If you go and look at it, there's a lot of movie style pictures in there because a lot of photographers saw that. And I would get comments all the time. You need to be the next James Bond. You need to, yeah, man, I would love to. And I could handle it, but again, age is a thing. So
yeah. Now talk to me about Sportskeeda, because now
Okay, I'm gonna get you to say it right first. Here we go. You ready?
Yeah.
Because you say it like Teddy says it. It's Sportskeeda.
Sportskeeda.
Yeah, yeah. And Teddy Long does the same thing. Sportskeeda, because he's been working with us now for 3 years, and it's still Sportskeeda. So
Sportskeeda, got it. So I actually use Sportskeeda for references. Right. Yep. But there is a lot of people out there who say that that's not Sportskeeda. It's not credible. Matter of fact, there is a wrestling group that I belong to that if I reference Sportskeeda, they won't even let me put up my post. Talk to me about that and why is it like that?
What I tell people all the time, because I have people, they'll ask me, say, why are you working for Sportskeeda? They're clickbait. Well, yeah, they are. I mean, name me a company that you're watching on YouTube or anywhere else that's not clickbait. They're all trying to get you to come watch. I think that what they do is they sensationalize the wrestling news, much like what the old Apter mags used to do.
Mhm.
You know, basically they're putting these things out there to get your attention, to
Right.
hook you, to get you to come to the site and see what's there. Information wise, I didn't know that they were inaccurate. I wouldn't say that.
No,
I would
I
say
did.
that
I use it.
when it comes to the shows that I do on Sportskeeda and anybody else, Bill Apter, Teddy Long, Dutch
Right.
Mantell, Vince Russo, we simply push the record button or go live button, and we start doing our thing, and then we turn it off. What they do when it comes to naming the thumbnails or
Right.
anything else, that's out of our hands. But again, I see it as a businessman, and as a businessman, yeah, you want people to come over there. I
Right.
think you need to be careful though, and I have
Right.
voiced that problem once before, that I thought we need to be careful about pushing the envelope too much, because if they're not, they're going to lose a lot of fans who will rely on them to give them something that's not clickbait. You know, you don't want to be known as clickbait, even though that is what your company is basically doing. Any company out there is doing clickbait. So, you know, you just got to find that fine line, and it's hard to do sometimes, especially in the competitive world now with AI and
Right.
how it's affecting, you know, everything that we get on a lot of the stuff you see now on YouTube. You and I, we're live. There are several programs right now while we're on that are not live, even though you may think they are.
Right.
And I don't mean by the people, you know, being live and recording in this exact time period. I mean actual people. You know,
Right.
these are people talking to you, and you hear voice and thinking, "Oh, this guy's good." It's not even real, and I hate that. I hate that. But it is what it is.
You know, and like you said, you know, there is one source out there, I'm not gonna mention his name, that, you know, if I do use it, I'm very careful. But when it comes to my sources, before I write something, it's Sportskeeda that I check, it's Wrestling Inc. and Fightful Select. Those are my three. And if one of those three aren't reporting on it, then I say nothing until I see it. You know, that's why I've never been able to understand the whole issue with Sportskeeda by people. But, you know, people are people, and there's so many haters out there, man.
Yeah. Look, this one thing I've learned in this business years ago, especially when it came to radio, you can't please all the people all the time. It does not happen. There's always going to be a hater. I guarantee you that this show and any other show I've done, there's always been bad comments about Mac is old and he's washed up, whatever. That just doesn't bother me. I mean, they can throw those all they want. It just boom, it's gone. I mean, I could care less. And honestly, God, I could just care less. And that's the great thing about being my age right now. You get to a point where, you know, like when I'm on the air, when you ask me questions, I'm giving you an honest answer. I have no reason to lie and don't want to lie. I want to be honest. And if it hurts people's feelings at times when I'm honest, well, tough. You know, that's just how it is. I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm not going to doctor it up. I'm going to give you the honest truth.
Absolutely. Well, you do a podcast with Vince Russo. Tell me about Vince Russo, because Vince Russo and Eric Bischoff, they're alike in the fact that you have a group of people that will tell you that they are sorry SOBs, and then you have a group of people that love them to death, that they're the greatest things in sliced bread. Tell me about Vince.
Vince is so far, and I say this now, we've been doing our show together for maybe 6 months or maybe a little bit longer. I'm not really sure. But during this time, you know, had a lot of people say, Mac, you don't want to do a show with Vince. You don't want to do that. He's not good. He's going to come after you. And my response was, and still is to this day, I judge people on how they treat me, my interaction with that individual. And so far with Vince Russo, man, we've got along just fine. In fact, I think we click really well as a team. There are times when I will call him out on things if I feel I need to. In fact, it's not up now, but it will be soon on Sportskeeda. There is something where we start talking about Bubba the Love Sponge. And we go back and forth on that a little bit. And it's a really good story. So make sure you tune into that. That'll be on Sportskeeda. But that when it comes to Vince Russo is so far removed from the stories I've heard. You know, you hear a lot of bad things about Vince Russo. I just haven't seen it. And here's the funny thing. And I've told him this before too, and he knows. I like Eric Bischoff too. I like Jim Cornette. These guys, every one of them, they're unique in their own ways. And all three of them, more times than not, are right. And if you listen to Vince Russo, when you listen to him talk about a show like SmackDown, when we start discussing how the night SmackDown went, sometimes he can come across a little rough, but the truth is, if you listen to what he's saying, he's right. This segment would have been better if we had done this. He's right. If we had added just this element in here, that would have made it so much better. He's right. Why would we do this to a character if the end result is going to be something different? He's right. There are things just like that when it comes to Vince Russo that you have to listen to. Jim Cornette, man, he's got some of the best storytelling ideas out there. I love his mind. And yet he and Vince Russo don't get along either, any more than Vince Russo and Eric Bischoff. Eric Bischoff, I got along with fine. I see him several times a year. And I haven't seen him since I started working with Vince Russo. So we'll have to see. Next time he might not speak to me, but I doubt it because, he's the same way. Right. He and I have always gotten along perfectly fine. So I have no reason to dislike any of these guys. And the other good thing with me and Vince Russo and me and Eric Bischoff in most cases is I didn't listen to a lot of the dirt back then about who didn't like who and why and the little fights that went on. So a lot of this is new to me, and I'm coming in just listening going, really? And sometimes I can tell maybe somebody's stretching it a little bit because, again, it's about clicks. It's about views. And sometimes you got to sweeten it up a little bit to make people want to watch and really get entertained. So there's some entertainment even in the podcast. If you watch some of these bigger guys, there is entertainment in the podcast, and it's there for a reason, to get more clicks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have two more questions for you.
No, you only got time for one. No,
but before we go there, look, guys, if you guys want to talk to Mac about some type of a business venture, I'm just letting you know that I'm not going to put that up here because I'm not going to put them on the spot live on air like that. Contact them and talk to them then. Maybe other podcasters will. I'm not about putting my guests on the spot. So just want to put that out there.
Now, if you want to get in touch with me, anybody who wants to do that, you can go and find me. Email is macdavismail@gmail.com, and that's MacDavismail @gmail.com. And I'd be happy to talk to you. It's like you say, this is all consuming, the stuff that we do when it comes to podcasts. And I've gotten a lot of people send me stuff, ask me to be on podcasts. And yours is one of the last ones I'm doing for a period of time because like you say, it has been extremely busy with Hulk Hogan and things. I've done a lot of extra shows that I don't normally do. And so I'm kind of peeling back a little bit on some of these episodes of other people's shows. But I do love doing this because I think I told you, I'm normally asking questions, and it's really nice for somebody to ask me a question once in a while because, you know how it is. It's being the anchor or being the host of a show. You've got to make things flow and move, and it's not easy to do. And a lot of people think it is, but it's a lot of work. So it's I enjoy this.
Yeah, it is. So I want to talk to you about kayfabe, right?
Okay.
Kayfabe has really been a topic that for some people is very sore. They kayfabe is dead. But with today, with the internet, do you think that it would be possible for us to exist in a world where we had kayfabe in professional wrestling?
I think that kayfabe can live, and I think that it still is alive. To this day, and maybe being a little bit more resurrected than it was at one time. I've always thought that really kayfabe is important. And I just watched the Unreal series, all except for maybe one or two. So I haven't seen the complete series. But what I've seen so far, I'm not as upset with it as I thought I might be. I kind of think that maybe they've edited out some of the things that they originally put in there because it's not as shocking as what they made it sound like it was going to be. Really, a lot of it's just kind of a follow-up to WrestleMania or some of the big shows, which they've done in the past already with different talent. They just kind of put them all together into a 1-hour show. So it's not terribly bad. There are things I think that they show the fans that maybe we didn't need to show them that, but
Right.
it's entertainment. Teddy Long would tell you that on every time we do a show. It's not wrestling anymore. It's entertainment. And it's something that we have to keep in mind.
Yeah, I agree. And, I wasn't going to, when I found out the show was coming on Unreal, I said it multiple times on my podcast, I refuse to watch it. I don't want to peek behind the curtain. But I'll be damned if curiosity didn't kill the cat.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like you, it wasn't that bad. They didn't show anything that I wasn't already aware of, right? And I actually enjoyed a few of the episodes because they got a little personal in the personal lives of the professional wrestlers. So I enjoyed that. Last question.
Well, I want to say this too. When it comes to Unreal, keep in mind that while it comes across as being real, it's still a work. Some of what you see is a work. They're only going to let you see what they want you to see. And I can tell that when watching the shows that, they're very careful in certain instances as to telling you too much because they're still manipulating the story so they can make you want to come along for the ride. So that's the only thing is I don't feel like it's 100% true, but it's pretty damn close.
I tell you what, since I've been doing this podcast, I've gotten to become pretty good friends with quite a few people who are in the business. And there's been instances where I had two guys who were professional wrestlers talking about stuff. And I literally walked away because I'm like, I don't want to hear this. I don't,
Yeah, I hate that because there's no way around that anymore. Right. Like I say, the business is different. It's entertainment. But, back at the time when we were growing up, we didn't have the internet, not until later in life. Right. And before then, you were able to do things that you can no longer do now. And that is, hide secrets and keep things away from people because not everybody was on the internet saying, hey, did you see this? Back then you had to grab the telephone off the wall and start calling somebody and say, hey, did you hear about this? Or going to CB radio, which was also big back then, but I mean, I think in the day and age of internet, we've lost some of the kayfabe, but I think we're finding our way around that now.
Good.
And that's why even I'm careful on how I'm saying this, and I'm not giving you an instance. I mean, there's a reason for that.
Right.
But there are cases where I believe that kayfabe is being worked again, and it's considering the social media and how to use it properly to their advantage.
Yeah. And Triple H, people can say what they want. Triple H has been so amazing about that. I think we've gotten more surprises in the past couple of years since Triple H has been in charge with WWE than we've gotten in the past 10 years prior because of so much that was leaking out. Triple H has found a way to use the internet to his advantage to keep those surprises for us. The last thing
did you watch the Attitude Era? Was that a big era for you?
Yeah.
Let me ask you, would you rather watch a show from the height of the Attitude Era or a show currently with WWE?
Oh, man. It depends on what it is. Like, it depends which segment, to be honest. And I'll give you an example. How they were using women back in the Attitude Era compared to women now, man, you can get rid of that. The women back in the day. I love what they're doing with the women.
But they still told great stories, even though it was a different kind of wrestling for women. It was TNA basically back then, but they did have some great stars.
Yeah, and they did it. I grew up watching Mid-South Wrestling and and Atlanta Championship Wrestling, right? And I never forget, I've told the story before, when I was 12 years old, about 12 is when we first got cable, and my older brother introduced me to WWE. And I couldn't watch it because it was the cartoonish, characters back then. And I'm sure that was great for those, those people who were familiar with that.
I was the same way.
Growing up on Mid-South and Atlanta Championship Wrestling, I say that was the first Attitude Era because it was reality based then, and that's what I was accustomed to.
Yep. I was telling, who was I? It may have been Vince Russo the other night. I may have said something to him that, I grew up in the South, so I didn't know anything about WWE or, later on WWF. I'm sorry, WWF. I didn't know about that stuff. We didn't have the internet. You might have got tape trading and you could have watched some of it that way, or you saw it in the magazines through, with Bill Apter. But man, those days are so far removed now. I don't.
Well, and before I answer this last question, I believe it or not, it was Cowboy Bill Watts that kind of introduced me and got me into Hulk Hogan. And I tell you why, I never forget. I was watching the episode Mid-South Wrestling, and Bill Watts came on, and he was talking about how they have their real champion. Ric Flair is real champion. The other guys said they are using people from television shows. And he was talking about Mr. T to partner with this champion. And I was like, what are we talking about? We had cable then. I switched it over and I caught Hulk Hogan with Mr. T. And that's what got me invested into Hulk Hogan because, man, I was a huge A-Team guy, right? The TV show that Mr. T was on. So Bill Watts is the one that pushed me to the whole Hogan thing. But other than that, man, I wasn't into the cartoon characters. And like I said, it was great for their territory. That's what they loved.
Oh, yeah.
At the time, Ric Flair was the real champion as far as I was concerned. And,
it's the same thing here. If you were a Southerner, the Southern wrestling, the Mid-South, whether it was Georgia Championship Wrestling, NWA, WCW, any of those smaller satellite shows that were all over the place in the South, those to us, those were the stars. The stuff when we started getting exposed to some of the WWE, is like, oh man, they got a garbage man, they got a booger man, all this silliness that they had, and it's like you couldn't take them seriously. But it was Hogan, his first run, WrestleMania 1, WrestleMania 2, WrestleMania 3. It was a great time period, and it did draw people in, like myself, from Southern wrestling to see just what the heck this guy was doing because he was bigger than life.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And speaking of bigger than life, Teddy Long, who I consider bigger than life. We're talking about Atlanta Championship Wrestling, right? Or Georgia Championship Wrestling. The very first time I ever laid eyes on Teddy Long, I was a little boy, and I remember Teddy Long was picking up the robes from the wrestlers and stuff. And then next I see him roughing. But I want to talk about how you met Teddy Long and what led you guys to do the podcast, the Road Trip After Hours, because I tell you, I've been watching it faithfully, and it is, and honest to God, I'm not blowing smoke up your ass, it's my favorite podcast right now.
I appreciate that. I truly,
so funny, man. I laugh and laugh and laugh.
Well, what happened was that Teddy and we've known each other for many years, but we started working together in a Georgia promotion, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, maybe longer than that. And when we started working together there, behind the scenes and doing things and working together in the ring, we realized that, man, we had some conversations that were fun. And I would poke fun at him. He'd poke fun at me, and neither one of us took it seriously. But there are a lot of people to this day who go, man, you were kind of rough on him. No, that's what we do. Teddy and I are like two brothers, two of a kind. I always tell people when he's away, I said, yeah, I'm Teddy's twin brother. And I'll introduce myself that way. But Teddy is really a cool guy. He is one of those guys who I've met a lot of people in wrestling, and those people who have offered to help me in advance and to show me things and open doors that others wouldn't do. Teddy was the first one that came along that meant everything he said. He would tell me all the time, I'm not doing that show unless they have you with me. Hey, just point blank, I won't do that show unless they have you with me, because he saw us as a package. It's Teddy, it's Mac, and our show is Road Trip After Hours. And if you want to talk about that, you have both of us on, not just one of us. And I had to kind of back him away from that. I was like, Teddy, if you keep doing that, nobody's going to be talking to us. So, but he's just that way. I'll go to shows, and he'll make sure that I'm treated right at these shows, and that I get what I should be getting, and he'll give me advice on handling different things along the way. And he's been a godsend. I love Teddy. I've told him that before, and I don't say that about many people.
Right.
But Teddy is just one of those guys that I will forever be grateful for having a chance to meet and work with, and now consider a close friend.
Right. Darla Staggs. Speaking of people who are,
Darla, I love Darla.
I do too. She says hello.
Darla, it's good to see you in here. It's always good to see her. I see her every year in St. Louis, if not somewhere else along the way as well. But Darla is a sweetheart. She's just somebody that when you see her, you know everything's okay.
Yep. Now you just said that, Teddy Long said that, they want to talk about, after hours, road trip after hours. You got to have both of you. I will take both of you on anytime you guys have the opportunity. I would love to have both of you on. Tell Teddy Long that I say hello now. He won't know me from Adam, but if you remind him, he's the guy from Missouri whose wife was with him, even though she does not like professional wrestling, he'll know.
No, he'll remember, because that's exactly what he's going to. I'll tell him. I said, remember the lady that we talked to and said, you must be a saint to put up with him watching wrestling all day, because she would sit there. For those of you who are watching, let me kind of explain this. We were at a fan fest. His wife, God bless her, I saw her all day long, and she was sitting in a chair just as patiently and looking around. And I'm thinking, she is not a wrestling fan. She's not, and she's here with somebody, and I'm trying to figure out who is she here with that she, is putting up with this. And I came up to you and I said, man, I don't know how you did this. I said, but to find somebody like that that loves something and puts up with it to let you do that is a keeper. You can't let that go.
Right. And look, she's beautiful when you see this face. Absolutely. Darla wants to know, will you be at the gathering this weekend?
Darla, I wish I were. That's one place I've only been there once. And that's the last time I spoke with Jim Cornette. And I had a blast. It's a fun place, but no, I can't seem to get the powers to be there to bring me in, and I wish they would, because it's a place I love to go.
Well, tell you what, Mac, I know you got to get going, my friend. You're a very busy man, busier than I am even. Thank you so much for coming on. Are you going to be in Vegas for the CAC?
I don't think so. It doesn't look that way at this point right now. I've actually had, like I think I mentioned in the beginning, I've had some surgeries done recently, and I've got some more I'd like to get in, especially now that I know that the deductible for insurance has been met. So now you want to hit it hard. Get what all now I need to get done, because it's 100% covered now. So, I'm just not sure what my schedule is going to look like for the rest of the year. And Darla, I'm sorry, tell Barbara I said hello to. She's another one of the three there. Pam's not coming, I guess. Pam won't be there. But Pam may be there. I'm not sure. But usually those three, when they get together, there's trouble.
Yeah, I all three of them were such great ladies. I love all three of them. Matter of fact, they're the first three that I met in Missouri, and Mr. Herb and Darla, Barbara, and Pam are a big reason why my podcast started to have the success that it did. So I am always indebted to them. Mac, again, thank you so much. You open door anytime you want to come on the podcast. I would love to have you and Teddy one day. Don't worry, I'm not going to blow up your phone asking. I said it, and I know you guys are busy, and the time comes, the time will come. Is there anything that you want to plug before we go?
Just a reminder to join us for Road Trip After Hours. It's a live show Thursday nights on YouTube and Facebook. It's Teddy Long and myself, and we take questions from you. The great thing about it, too, is that you don't have to pay money. No super chats, no stickers, all the other stuff. Some of the other shows I do that, but I have no control. But on this show, I do, so it's free. It's something that Teddy and I, when we started the show, we said from the get-go, we're not in this to make money on this podcast. We're here for the fans. We just want to have fun. And that's why we started the podcast in the first place. Just two guys wanting to have fun, and neither one of us with any experience on how to even start a podcast. And it's come along really well, and we appreciate it. But make sure you subscribe. Go by there and subscribe. Road Trip After Hours.
Yep, and absolutely. And I promise, guys, it is impossible to watch this show. If you are in a bad mood for some reason that day and you watch this podcast, it's impossible to be in a bad mood once our podcast is done, because they are so funny that you're going to be smiling. Mac, again, thank you
Thank
so much. Talk to you soon, my friend.
Thank you,
Have
brother.
a great week. Everyone, please subscribe to the podcast. And don't forget to check out Road Trip After Hours with Mac Davis and Teddy Long.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.